Good evening. India and 27-nation European Union have inked what is being touted as the mother of all deals. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has hailed it as a pact for global good. And the timing of this free trade agreement, which has been in the making for good 18 years, cannot be better as it comes just ahead of Budget 2026 and also amidst geo-economic uncertainty. To look at the big picture of the Indian economy, the health of our economy and the macroeconomics data, we have with us former MOS Finance Jayant Sinha, someone who needs no introduction, but nevertheless, I'm going to tell you more about him. He is also the former chairman of Finance Committee of Parliament and presently visiting professor at London School of Economics. And also, we have a young audience which is keen on understanding the budget numbers. Welcome to the master class of Jayant Sinha. Let's have a round of applause. Sir is in the studio here. Mr. Sinha, over the next 30 minutes, we'll be looking at multiple questions that needs to be answered. But first up, what is the big data that we should look at?
Well, a very warm Jharkhandi Johar to you, Maria, and this young audience on a cold winter's day. And because it is in fact a cold winter's day, as you know very well, it is on February 1 that the budget is presented. And we are right about that time when the budget will be presented. And everybody's attention, your attention included, everybody's attention turns to the economy and to the budget. So let's spend a few minutes going through, when we talk about the economy, what do we actually mean? And as you pointed out right in your introduction, Maria ji, what is the impact of this very historic FTA, free trade agreement, that we are signing with the European Union? So let's dive right into that.
Okay, so first set of data now, please. The first graphics right on your television screens. We are looking at India's GDP for financial year 2025, 330 lakh crore. That's the total expenditure. What does this mean, sir?
So there are two or three things about this chart that are very important for everyone to understand. When we talk about the economy, we are really talking about the output from the economy. That is the economic activity that adds up to our production. And that in rupees is 330 lakh crores in the last fiscal year. Now, please understand a very important factor here. Most people, when they think of the economy, think that the government is the dominant share of the economy. That is not correct. As you can see from this chart, the central government accounts for 38 lakh crores, state and local governments, municipalities, every state adds up to 53 lakh crores, and everybody else, which means us and companies and so on, add up to 234 lakh crores. So the government is 1/3 of the economy, and 2/3 of the economy is actually the private sector.
Okay, so sir, when we look at these others, 234 lakh crores, who are these?
This is the output that we are producing, the economic activity that all of us as individuals are doing and our companies are doing as well. So together, as I said, they account for 2/3 of all economic activity. And the government does not get its resources from somebody in the sky. Ultimately, it is the 2/3 that's economic activity from the private sector that's actually through taxes, through fees, through sales of assets, and through borrowings that actually leads to the expenditure of both the central and the state and local governments. So the economy is 1/3 government sector and 2/3 private sector. It's not the other way around. When I often talk to young people, they say, oh my God, the government is everything. No, the government is 1/3, and the government derives all of its economic resources actually from us, the Janta. So when we start talking about the budget, one of the very important things everybody wants to know is how much is the government going to take from us to be able to run what it does. And that's a lot of the accounting of the budget, which is taxes and everything else.
Okay, so what are these different sections? That's going to be the next question, because if we are looking at that huge number of 234 lakh crores, let's put out the next slide now. This is today's India. Mr. Jayant Sinha?
Maria, the way to understand it is that 234 lakh crores is the economic activity of Indians. Yani ki hum log, hum janta. So to understand India's population, it's good to roughly look at it in three parts, right? There's the top part, which let's say these are the people that are really plugged into the global economy. So it's a lady working at an IT services company in Bangalore. She's making a good sum of money. She's making, let's say, 15 lakhs a year in annual income. She has a very high-end lifestyle. She's got cars, air conditioners, TVs. That's the people right at the top of the income pyramid. They are sort of the global class that exists in India. That's one section of Indian society. The next section of Indian society, which is effectively the middle class, are people that are making about 5 or 6 lakhs a year in annual income. And they have a flat, they have a small car, they have a refrigerator, an air conditioner, but they are living very middle class lifestyles. And that's the people in the middle. And then there's Janta. Now, the Janta, of course, is the vast majority of people in India. Their income is much lower. Their income is 70, 80,000 rupees at most, and they are, of course, beneficiaries of all of the government welfare programs and so on. So that is how you should try and understand India: the global class, the middle class, and then the Aam Janata. That's India. That's how we have to understand the 234 lakh crores.
This is actually very well summed up, Mr. Sinha, because we are looking at multiple cities. Bengaluru, because the IT hub, these are also upwardly mobile, as you say. The middle class largely living in tier 2 cities. But is Ahmedabad really a tier 2 city then?
No, Ahmedabad is 10 million people, 1 crore people. So it's not a it is a tier 2 city, but definitely not a tier 3 or a tier 4 city. But people who are living in these bustling cities, who are making a comfortable living as shopkeepers, as small business people, they typically represent the middle class.
Okay, and then we have someone who is the Aam Janata. Perhaps the next slide will be able to explain that better, which will be the pyramid, because that will perhaps give us a sense of how we are looking at these various income groups.
Yes.
Income pyramid. Why are we looking at it in the form of a pyramid, Mr. Sinha?
So this is a very important chart for everybody to understand what we are striving to do as we build a Viksit Bharat. Agar hame Viksit Bharat banana hai, if we want everybody to develop, jo Vikas Yatra, the journey of development, what does that actually mean? Not in an abstract GDP way. Right? So when you talk about some abstract GDP number, it's very difficult to relate to that. So what we've tried to do is to say ki we have a global class, we have a middle class, and then we have Janta. Where were they 10 years ago? How has that developed? Where are they now, and where are they likely to be when we get to Viksit Bharat in 2047? So if you go back and you say, okay, 10 years ago, where was the global class? It was only about 11 million households. The middle class was only 28 million households, and the vast majority of people were in the Aam Janata. That's where we were 10 years ago, right? Now, what is remarkable is that over the last 10 years, there's been tremendous growth. So the number of people in the global class has now gone to 40 million households. That's almost quadrupled. That's the tremendous development that's happened. The number of people in the middle class has doubled. It's gone from 28 million to 60 million. And then you have still 225 million households that are in the Aam Janata. So this is the social dynamism. This is the income mobility that has happened over the last 10 years. And as we move forward on this Vikas Yatra, on this journey towards Viksit Bharat, what is going to happen, and this is very important to understand, is that we are going to shrink the number of people in the Janta, which are not able to get a regular sustained income and so on, but we'll shrink that to only 72 million households. We will have the vast majority of Indians in the middle class, 174 million households. And then, of course, in the global class, people who are plugged into the whole global economy and so on, that number is also going to grow dramatically. It's going to go up by almost 4 times. So as we move towards Viksit Bharat, the whole income pyramid of India itself is going to change. That's what this development means.
One concern which often the opposition raises is that there has not been much of a shift in this Janta. Why is it, sir?
No,
from
there
this
has
number
been
to this.
That's a good point, Maria.
From 2015 to 2023, not much of a shift.
Well, that's not true, because what has happened is that, of course, income has grown, but the cutoffs have been such that we still have a large number of people at the base of the pyramid. But look at what has happened in terms of the top of the pyramid and in the middle class. One has quadrupled, the other has doubled, and there is a lot of social mobility. Of course, population has also grown in 10 years, and that's why the number of households have also grown. Population has increased quite a bit. We are now about 1.45 billion people. So in the last 10 years, we've added hundreds of millions of people as well. And so that's why the number of households has gone up. But in terms of their percentage share, that has gone down substantially.
This is an ideal situation. This is what we are aiming for.
Yes.
Viksit Bharat.
Yes.
How achievable is it in these 20 years?
The good news, Maria ji, is that as long as we continue to do what we have done the last 10 years, we are actually going to see an income pyramid which looks like the one on the right, which means that virtually everybody will have moved out of the Janta category into middle class and into the global class. So as long as we keep doing what we're doing, and the Honorable Prime Minister said, we are on the reform express. We are on the reform express. So we are on this train that's rapidly leading to a Viksit Bharat. And as long as we keep doing what we've done over the last 10 years, in the next 20, 25 years, we are going to have an income pyramid which is going to be very, very different. And Maria ji, one more thing, I will just back to your other question. Remember, the percentages have changed, right? So previously, you could see that the vast percentage of people were, in fact, at the Janta class. Now, that's not the case. So that's the social dynamism, that's the income mobility that we have to see, and that's what's going to continue as we move forward.
Okay, so let's bring in the next slide now, and this is the unemployment concern. That are we continuing in an era of jobless growth?
Not at all. And what this data shows is how the unemployment rate has performed in the last year. You can see it's very steady. We have moved a little bit, 6% to 7%, then back down to 6.7%. But the unemployment rate has been quite stable. It's not gone up. It's not increased dramatically. It's remained quite stable over the last year and, in fact, over the last 10 years as well. So largely, everybody that's looking for a job is able to find a job. That's what this means. Now, they may not entirely get the job that they want, but there's enough work in the economy that anybody who wants to find a job, by and large, can find a job.
In fact, the audience will have a lot of jobs-related questions.
I'm sure they will, yes.
Yes, I'm going to take those questions, so please be prepared. But before that, there is something called the EPFO subscribers. The government insists, please look at that data rather than the employment or unemployment data which keeps trickling in.
Yeah.
Look at the EPFO now slide, please. Why EPFO subscribers?
Now, this is also a very important slide, Maria ji, and I'm happy that you have shown this. What this is showing is the number of people being added to the Provident Fund rolls month after month after month in the last year. And you can see that this number is on a net basis, and I have to thank Tharo for putting together all of this data in a very good way. All the data is sourced from the government, so it's very credible. This shows you how every month the number of people who are joining the formal workforce is increasing. And the net number is increasing month by month, first by 13 lakhs, now by 19 lakhs, 20 lakhs. So in 1 year, if you're on average increasing it by about 20 lakhs, you can imagine how many people are joining the formal sector every year, which is back to the unemployment rate that we discussed earlier, which is the unemployment rate is low and stable because pretty much everybody that wants a job in the formal sector is able to find a job. And you can see that through the net additions in the EPFO subscribers.
Then there is another concern, and that is, as you said, that this is workforce formalization.
Yes.
Does it then lead to tax filers going up? Let's bring that data now. Look at this.
Yes, this is also a very, very powerful set of numbers. And again, it will be great if you all pay attention to this, because if you look at the total number, look at the total number of tax filers that we had in 2021, which is about 6 to 7 lakh crores. Now look at the total number of taxpayers that we have just 4 years later. That number has increased by about 40–50%. So we have had a large number of people who have become taxpayers because their incomes have gone up, they've joined the formal sector, and they're paying a lot more in taxes as well. Now there's another very important piece of data here that you should understand, which is that if you look vertically, not just horizontally in terms of the number of taxpayers, and you see the 10 to 20 lakh taxpayers from 52 lakhs to 86 lakhs. So massive increase there. Now look at the number of taxpayers on 50 lakhs and above. That's gone from 4 lakhs to 7.4 lakhs. What is this showing? It's showing that the number of high-income taxpayers, there are more people who are becoming like the lady who's an IT engineer who's joining the global class. So not only are we adding more people to our tax base and increasing the number of people who are taxpayers, but the number of people who are paying more in tax is increasing dramatically. Again, as I said, it's increasing by 2 or 3 times in the higher tax categories. And again, it's showing the tremendous social dynamism that exists in India, where people are moving from the Janta to the middle class and then into the global class.
So this is essentially positive narrative, what the government has been talking about in terms of how the number of jobs it has generated in the last few years has been record high. So to the young audience here, please go ahead and ask questions. Particularly, I know there are a lot of questions with regards to the health of Indian economy and the jobs. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Niharika, and my question for you is this, that what does this budget 2026 offers to the educated but unemployed youth? Because there are many students like us also, even if we have skills, we have knowledge, but still we are unemployed here. So what does this budget 2026 offers to us?
No, that is exactly the right question that you should be asking. Now, of course, with respect to budget 26, we'll have to wait for that the Honorable Finance Minister will read that out on February the 1st. So that budget hasn't come yet. But please look at all of the very important reform actions that the government has taken over the last year or so, right? We've had the tremendous simplification of GST, which has lowered GST for everybody, lowered the price of all the goods that you're buying. We had the wonderful breakthrough last year in the budget when we changed tax to 12 lakhs. The threshold, we changed that to 12 lakhs. Only people making more than 12 lakhs are paying taxes now. That was a major simplification. We've changed the labor codes. We've simplified and streamlined the labor codes. We've changed education by bringing in one regulator for higher education. And very importantly, Maria ji, as you said, we have signed very important FTAs. And I'll come to your question about jobs. But we've signed these very important FTAs. We've done it with the UK, we've done it with Australia, we've done it with the UAE. And now the mother of all deals, with the European Union, which is 27 different nations. Now, how does that make a difference in your life, right? All of these reform steps. What happens is that when we can trade freely without trade barriers, without high import duties, etc., with all of these important countries, whether it is in textiles, whether it is in automotive parts, whether it is in gems and jewelry, whether it's in IT services, the markets that we can supply expand dramatically. And when we can go into all these different markets and sell our goods and services to all these different countries without barriers, that means the opportunities for jobs also increase dramatically. The prediction is that just in textiles, the ability to be able to export into the European Union without all of these barriers is going to increase jobs by 6 or 7 million people. That's 60 to 70 lakhs. So all of these reform steps, friends, are going to add up to a situation where you'll be able to get more better jobs. That is a trend, as I showed you, has been happening, whether it's through EPFO subscribers or whether it's through taxpayers. You're seeing the number of high quality jobs and the formalization of the economy happening continuously.
Okay, so there are certain sectors which will be in demand. I was looking at some data which suggested that perhaps technology, green economy will be in demand. But interestingly, that we are in the age of AI, and the sense is that technology still will be in demand. So will it be AI-driven jobs or technology-driven jobs? Or are you trying to make that distinction at all?
So there are two very major changes that are happening to the global economy. One, of course, is the move towards sustainability, right? So we have a situation where we need to move away from fossil fuels, that's petrol, diesel, natural gas, much more towards solar power, wind power, and so on. And for that, we have to change our entire grid. We have to change our entire power sector. And all of our cars will change. Our buses and trucks will change. Instead of running on diesel, and of course creating air pollution and so on, they'll move to electricity. So this is a very major change that's happening in the economy, this move towards sustainability, and that is happening all around the world, and India can benefit from that. The other major disruption that's happening, Maria ji, is artificial intelligence.
That's right.
Now, a lot of people are worried that artificial intelligence will take away jobs, but that's not how it has happened. Usually when a new powerful technology like the internet, or before that electricity, or before that railways, when these kinds of very important game-changing technologies come, the number of jobs does not change. In fact, it increases. The types of jobs may change, right? Once we got cars and trucks and so on, we didn't have many people looking after horses anymore because that technology went away, right? But then we got mechanics instead. We got people who were truck drivers and bus drivers, not necessarily who were driving horse-drawn carriages. So yes, the nature of jobs change, but ultimately the number of jobs actually increases, and that's what most people are expecting with artificial intelligence as well.
So now let's look at the big picture. GDP comparison, we have been speaking about GDP numbers. IMF says that India is the bright spot, perhaps the fastest growing large economy. And the GDP comparison is, of course, in comparison to the countries which are largely seen as developed nations. Mr. Sinha, when we look at this comparison and the projections for 2030, how should we be reading it?
So when we talk about Viksit Bharat, there are two ways of looking at it. The first way, which I described to you earlier, is to say what happens to us as individuals, as households, right? And so as I was explaining there, as we move towards being a Viksit, a developed country, what will happen is that we will not have people in the Janta category. They'll all become middle class or better. So that's one way of looking at it in terms of individuals. The other way of looking at it, which is what we are doing in this chart, is to actually look at the size of the economy as far as GDP is concerned. Now here the size of the economy is not in lakh crores. We said it was 330 lakh crores in the previous chart. Here we are looking at it in trillions of dollars, which is the standard way in which you compare economies across the world. And as the Honorable Prime Minister has said, we are rapidly moving towards being the third largest economy in the world. And by 2030, it's clear we'll be bigger than Germany, the UK, Russia, and we'll be the third largest economy at 7 trillion. We are roughly about 4 trillion right now. We'll go to 7 trillion by 2030. 7 trillion. However, and this is very important to understand, the top two economies in the world, which is the American economy and the Chinese economy, are still very, very far ahead. Yes. And so when we get to $7 trillion by 2030, the Chinese economy will have gone to $26 trillion and the American economy will have gone to $37 trillion.
In terms of overtaking China or USA, that's going to be a long
That is a long way away. And again, as I said, please recognize the American economy at 37 trillion,
yes,
right, is going to be more than 5 times our size even then.
Okay, let's look at the next slide now. This is the growth rate. Growth engine story for 2025.
Yeah. So the good news, of course, here is that we are the world's fastest growing large economy. So as we looked in the previous chart and we said we are 4 trillion growing to 7 trillion, what that means is our GDP growth rate, long-term GDP growth rate is actually very good. It's at 6.2%. No other economy in the world which is our size is growing at this rate. But the question is, can we catch up? Can we catch up with a China, right? Can we catch up with an America? That's very, very far away. For us to genuinely catch up with China, we should be growing not at 6.2%, but 8 or 9%. And actually, friends, the reason that China got so far ahead of us, 30, 40 years ago, China's economy, China's GDP per capita was exactly the same as ours. 30, 40 years ago. However, they grew not at 6%, but at 8 or 9%. And that's why they've gotten so far ahead of us. So the real challenge for all young people, which is what I tell everyone, is you have to grow as fast as China. They are our real competition. America, of course, is a much smaller country, much bigger, more developed, etc. But for us, the real competition is China. They are our competition. We have to excel. We have to work hard so we can be as productive and as good as they are.
But visibly, India continues to be a global outlier. That's going to be a big takeaway. China is slowing, but is still stronger.
Yes.
At 4.2%. Again,
you can see we are growing at
economies,
6.2, but China is still growing at 4.2, and they're very far ahead of us, right? So the question is, how quickly can we catch up? And that depends on what you do.
And advanced economies have plateaued. The
Yes.
US, the UK, and the Germany.
Yes, exactly. And that is in part because they have reached a stage demographically where their populations are much older and their populations are not growing. Many of their populations actually are declining. In fact, China's population is also declining because their birth rates have come down as much. So one very big advantage we have against any and every other country in the world is we have a young population, we have high birth rates, so our population is going to go from about 1.45, 1.46 billion to more than 1.8 billion. So we are still growing fast, we still have a lot of people. Other countries are not growing as fast because they are in this process of demographic decline.
Okay. That brings us to the last slide of this conversation and the show. This is about GDP per capita. Huge per capita gap. India remains as far as in the low to lower middle income.
Exactly. So again, the important numbers here to look at is we are about $3,000 GDP per capita. Look at America. As I said, only 350 million people producing $30 trillion of GDP. And as a result of that, their per capita GDP in this coming calendar year 2026 is going to be about $93,000 per capita. So what that means is that the average person in America is actually making every year 1 crore rupees. That's how much they're earning. And they're not earning because, they are some super people. No, they're earning because they have been educated well and they have the tools and the resources so that they can produce a lot.
So growth has to be productivity driven.
Yes.
That is the big challenge for India now.
That is exactly right. And so there are two important things. One, education. So as I said, our competition is actually America and China because we are moving ahead of everyone else. So we all have to be more productive, more capable and better educated than other people we are competing with, let's say the Americans and the Chinese. And remember, the Chinese developed DeepSeek. You heard about DeepSeek? So they were able to take the AI technology that OpenAI and Anthropic and these people are doing and build a Chinese model DeepSeek, which is almost as good as the American one. That shows you how innovative and how productive they are. So education, innovation is very important. And number two, we have to give you the tools, the capital, all of the computers, the AI models, everything that will make you more productive. So the two things, and this is actually what we should be looking for in the budget, which is how will the government equip us as Indians to get a better education so we can compete with the best in the world. And I'm very lucky I went to IIT Delhi, so I'm very confident I can compete with the best in the world. And at the same time, provide the incentives so we can invest in our economy. We have fantastic infrastructure. We have fantastic equipment so that we can compete with the best in the world.
Mr. Jayant Sinha, thank you for this class. And I'm sure the audience here is better prepared for all the number crunching and the big data that will be thrown at us on first. Thanks so much for watching, viewers.